Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday. First question from Akshay, and I hope I got your name right. Hi Roman, love your videos. Get a lot of knowledge and insight in the world of horology. Thank you. My question for you is, what is your view on Rolex Air King 116900? Ian, if you can pop that guy on the screen. Will it ever go up in value like the other popular Rolex models? Will it get discontinued due to the failure of Supersonic Bloodhound Project and Rolex not being affiliated with them anymore? Will it also become collectible in the future if Rolex discontinues it this year or next, as it will have a short production run? Thanks in advance for your reply. Regards, Akshay. So it's an awkward little Air King, as I like to call it. And the reason I call it that is because of the color combination, the yellow crown, the green writing, the green hand, the very busy numbers, right? You know, you have the big 369, right? And then you have the minute markers that are fairly large as well. A whole lot going on that tiny little Rolex. And I say tiny by today's standards because of the fact that it's 36 millimeters and everybody wants it something that's slightly bigger, at least 40, and now with the new models, 41s, right? To answer your question very simply, if a watch is not as popular out of the gate, right? And look, mind you, this thing is trading at list over list, and some people put out that way over list, right? Because of the hype that's going on with the sports Rolex models, right? Personally, I don't think this is a future collectible, and I will tell you why. If you go back and look at the vintage stuff, there's always a good indicator, right? What's bringing big money right now in the vintage Rolex world? Obviously, your Daytonas. Obviously your Submariners, and obviously your GMTs. And on the smaller side, on the plainer side, it's the Explorer 1s, right? Everything else, old Datejust and Air Kings, you don't see them in auction. You don't see them fetching buku dollars. You don't see them out there trading for stupid amounts of money. So odds are this watch will not either, because A, it wasn't popular to begin with. It's not as popular now, even though the prices are kind of crazy on them just the same. But again, the prices are crazy on them just the same due to the overall hype on Rolex.
Don't believe the hype.
So to answer your questions, my opinion is no, this is not a future collectible. But if this is a watch you own or don't own and want to buy, and this is a watch you like, then who cares? Go out there, buy it, enjoy it, and wear it in good health. Hope that answers your question. Here's a question from Graham. He writes, Roman, big fan of your channel. Thank you so much for the work that your team do. I thoroughly enjoy your videos and have learned a lot. Hope that you, your lovely wife Anna, and the family are all safe and well. My lovely wife Anna and kids are safe. Thank you for asking, and thanks for the kind words. I have a reasonable collection of cheaper sub 1000 watches. I'm looking to buy my first luxury watch, a steel Rolex Submariner, no date 114060. Which will be my dream come true for me. I understand that the market right now dictates higher than retail prices. It's almost impossible to get a 2020 watch from an AD. However, I was totally disgusted by the way I was recently treated by a UK's largest AD when I had a telephone appointment due to COVID-19. Essentially, the lady told me that if I wanted any chance of being allocated a watch at some time in the future, that I needed to be an existing Rolex customer with them, and therefore needed to buy some of the more readily available Rolex models if I wanted to secure my dream watch, even though I don't want any of those models. I recently heard on Paul Thorpe's channel of a recent case when AD had texted or WhatsApped a customer in the market for a Rolex telling him that his manager needed the customer to spend effectively 30,000 British pounds on jewelry with them and he could make it happen. I assume this was a more expensive Rolex model, ? I think these methods are outrageous, and I wonder if Rolex knows that their trusted and valued ADs are doing this to customers. If they're upset because the market is dictating higher price, and they just sell them to us at a premium rather than these immoral methods. Sorry for the rant, but this whole experience left me feeling unloved as a potentially new Rolex customer and very disappointed. I'm currently trying to source a 2020 model elsewhere, including your very helpful sales team. Just wonder if you could share your thoughts on these practices, and also if you have heard similar stories elsewhere. Thanks again, Roman. Keep up the great work. I hope one day I'll get an opportunity to meet you in person. Well, you will. Once this whole stuff is over and Paul Thorpe does end up doing his show, which was canceled, the one I actually had booked to go to, and then COVID hit, right? So hopefully you'll make it out there, and we will get to meet one day. Have I heard about these products? I can tell you millions of stories just like that. My favorite one is the jewelry story, because the markup on jewelry is so crazy. If somebody's buying a 30,000 British pounds in jewelry, you know, the markup on that stuff in retail locations is so crazy. And believe me, I know this firsthand because I wholesale jewelry to stores, that they could probably even give them a Daytona at half price and still make a ton of money, right? But long story short, yes, I've heard many of these stories, and I have what's called mixed emotions, right?
I'm in a glass case of emotion.
Speaking of mixed emotions, here's an old joke for you guys. What's the definition of mixed emotions, right? It's when your wife tells you that out of all your friends, you have the biggest one. Anyway, hope that was funny. So, mixed emotions, why? First of all, does Rolex know about this? Absolutely, Rolex knows about this. And Rolex shouldn't be surprised, and I'm sure they're closing their eyes on this for one simple reason, because they're not allocating enough stuff to them. Why? Because Rolex is too busy selling stuff out of their boutiques themselves. Why are they going to share in the profit with an authorized dealer, which is 37%, right? They get 37 off on this stuff. Why would they give up that extra 37% where they can pop this stuff out of their boutiques left and right? So therefore the allocation is really, really bad. I've told you guys before, these ADs, they have to try to squeeze as much profit as possible out of these models, and that's why they would rather sell to a guy like me at over retail price, $5,000 to $6,000 over retail price, than a customer such as yourself who's never bought anything from them, who's just trying to get himself a hot watch right now that fetches over list. Because again, along with that other stuff, they get a bunch of other stuff that's really, really expensive that they have to move. Some Pearl Masters, some President, some Diamond, the smaller ladies Rolexes that are not desirable or that are encrusted with diamonds that are very expensive that they have to almost give away at cost just in order to be able to sell it, right? So they're doing what they need to do in order to stay afloat. Remember, they're competing with Rolex themselves. And if they have other lines, it's the same thing, like APs, got boutiques left and right, they're taking away dealerships. B, they have to compete with guys like us, where a majority of the stuff in that store, not counting the hot Rolex sports model stuff that trades over list, we can get to you at a discount that's 10% over dealer cost, and they can't live on 5 to 10% margins because they have huge overheads and they don't have the volume that internet guys like us have. Which is why jewelry in the retail operations is super duper expensive. Sometimes I'll get one of my cousins or something that walks in here and says, hey, I would like to get a piece of jewelry. I saw this on your website. And obviously I'll sell it to them at cost. I won't make money on family and friends, right? And they're like, how much is your cost on this? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, dude, I saw this similar ring in a store for like $4,000. I'm like, yeah, well, my cost is $900, right? And that's, again, not to make this about jewelry, but bottom line is they have to have the margins to sustain themselves. That's where the mixed emotions come in. Now, when it gets a little obnoxious where they're like, oh, 30,000 or 30,000 British pounds in jewelry, or, sending a WhatsApp to a client, which you can then forward to the Rolex and they can technically get in trouble. That's already pretty bad. I think the best way, if I'm an AD and I want to sell this watch and you walk in there and say, look, I have this watch. You've never bought from me before. I'm not going to make you buy some stupid stuff that you don't want. What I may have suggested is that, you buy a ladies watch alongside with a men's watch of comparable value, right? What I may suggest is what you said. Hey, you know what? You know the game. You know these things are trading over list. They're out there on the market, let's say for $15,000, retailing is $10,000. Let me sell it to you for $13,500, $14,000, which is still a better deal than you will get out in the secondary market. Your name will be on the papers, but there's a big but there. If Rolex finds out that they did that, then they can get into trouble and lose the line. That's why they have to play the cat and mouse game. So I hope this sheds a little bit of light into that question. Here's a request, more than a question, but I wanted to bring this up from a gentleman named PC. Hey, Roman, I'm looking to get a birth year watch for 1969. Great year. Can you recommend a couple that still look good and operate well, given how old the watch is? They just may be. Anyway, enjoying your show as always, and a whip-smart analysis of watches and things in general. I want to discuss birth year watches. And a lot of you guys have requested birth year watches from me. A lot of you YouTube fans, a lot of my existing customers. I'm going to tell you the truth about birth year watches. They suck as a request for a dealer. We hate, as dealers, to get birth year watches.
No one cares about your birthday.
And I'll explain why. When your main concern becomes a birth year watch, right? You were born in 1969, so you want a watch that was manufactured in 1969. Depending on the brand, depending on what it is, you can find a watch from 1969 that may have been manufactured in 1969, right? But the papers may be dated in 1972.
That don't make no sense.
When the watch was sold. You may find, or vice versa, you may have papers that are dated 1969, but the watch was manufactured in 1964 or 1968, right? The only true way to pinpoint is to decide what you're going to go with. If, in the case of a Rolex, are you going to go with a serial number, where a particular serial number is manufactured in a particular year, or a range of years, right? That could also be a little bit difficult. Or do you go a watch that actually has papers and it says 1969 on it, right? And God forbid you get lucky, you may even have your birth date, right? But the problem is the following. Number one, there's no really true way to pinpoint a date in the watch, because again, the papers don't necessarily mean the watch was manufactured there, and vice versa. The serial numbers usually have a range from, let's say, 1968 to 1970, and we can only guess that the earlier serial numbers are 1969 and the later ones are going to be 72, 73, 74. But what if your birth year falls in the range of a 5-year gap of a watch, be it AP, a Rolex, or whatever it might be, and now I have to sort of guess, hey, was this watch actually manufactured in 1969, or what are archives, or call the company, which is not always easy to do. But that's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is condition. Most of the time, in fact, 99.9% of the time, this is an older watch or a vintage watch, right? So this is where the issue comes in. People often chase that year. And us as a dealer, I have to go out there and oftentimes sell you a mediocre watch just because it's from 1969. And the reason for that is because value on the vintage timepiece, specifically if you're talking about Rolex, right? Now, Rolex Datona from 1969 is kind of irrelevant. It's really not a popular watch, and it's really not collectible per se. So, and it's probably going to be beat to because nobody really cared to take care of it, and replacement parts are not going to be as easy because, again, nobody cares. If it was a GMT, it's a different story. So let's take a GMT, for example, right? You can get out there and buy yourself a vintage GMT anywhere, let's say, and I'm going to use fake numbers, anywhere, let's say, from $1 to $10. Why? It depends. Condition of the watch overall. Has the case been over polished? Are the lugs still sharp, right? Then we're talking about parts. Are all the parts original to the watch? Are they service parts, replacement parts, or parts from a completely different watch? Things like the insert, things like the bezel, things like the bracelet end links, and more so the dial, the hands, and the crown, or pushers, let's say, in case of a chronograph like a Daytona, right? All those things calculate into a number. So you can get a beat to GMT for $1 versus an excellent, perfect GMT, all correct GMT, not over polished with box and papers and everything, let's say for 10. A huge difference. The fuchsia that I guys showed you in an episode, right? I sold that watch for $25,000. There are fuchsia bezel Pepsi GMTs out there for $15,000, $16,000, $17,000. But the reason mine was $26,000 is because of all the bells and whistles that it came with. Double set of papers, all original parts, crown, dial in great condition, which is one of the most important and most expensive things is the dial on the watch. You have dials out there that are worth $20,000 just because they will raise the value of a particular watch by double that. When you come to me and say, hey, I want a birth year watch, now I have to either sacrifice quality of the watch itself just because it's a 1969 watch, or I'm going to turn around and tell you, don't chase the year, chase the watch, right? And at the end of the day, what is the satisfaction knowing that you have a watch from your birth year or the papers say 1969 on them, but yet you got yourself a watch that's kind of put together and beat the crap? I know it sounds hard to believe, but every time I talk to my vintage dealer, Adam Menta, right? Adam from Menta Watches, right? I brought him on to the show a couple of times. I got a 1518 Patek. He's like, holy shit, Roman, this is my Grail watch. Oh, I'm jumping on a plane. He lives in Florida, so, he said, I'm jumping on a plane. I want to talk about this Patek 1518.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to do this with you. And yes, I am very excited about this watch. Congratulations on acquiring it. This watch, hands down, is one of my favorite of all time.
I work with this guy very, very closely when it comes to vintage stuff. Every time I send him a request on the vintage timepiece through WhatsApp, you know what I get back? The rolling eyes emoji, because every single dealer out there hates to do it, but I felt this is a good platform for me to explain to you as to why and what are the issues out there looking for a birth year watch. I think the best thing to do for birth year watches is that when you have a child born, buy a watch with his birth year right there and then, and put it away in the safe for 20 years or however long you want to wait to give it to your child. And that's probably the easiest way to do it. It's a lot harder to get out there and find a birth year watch that's all correct, in good condition, one that I would actually want to sell to a client. Hope that sheds a little bit of light to all you guys. NPC, I appreciate a request that allowed me to bring up this topic. Next question from Patrick. Hey Roman, I got a question on watch protection. There are a few watch protector kits out there like Stix watch protection or from Watch Service in Germany, which I use and like. My watches do mean a lot to me and I want to keep them in perfect condition and good looking as long as possible, not to mention that they cost me a lot of money. In my opinion, I love the idea because they will be a gift for my son. He's now almost 2 years old, so it'll take some time for me to hand them over, but I'd like to enjoy them as long as I think he's ready to appreciate them, if he's interested in watches like me. So what's your opinion on protecting your watches with those stickers? I hope my English is okay. I'm from Austria, where we speak German. Wie geht's du? I was in Austria actually last summer. Vienna is a beautiful city. And I have to, by the way, you have the best hot dogs and ice cream.
What the hell did you just say?
That's those stands where they take the bun and they stick it on that big metal stick and they put the wiener in there and the mustard. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, and I have to say, thank you very much for your great videos, and much more important, your honesty. Really helpful for a guy who is new into the watch game like me. I have learned a lot, and I hope there's much more videos to come. Best wishes, Patrick. Patrick, thank you for the kind words. I will be honest with you, not a fan of putting stickers on my watches. No matter how good, I'm not familiar with, what is this? Sticks watch protection. Let's Google that. Sticks watch protection. So it's basically stickers and the likes of those that you get from the factory, like Rolex, just come all stickered up and stuff. I'm just curious what that looks like. Let's look at a Daytona. Well, actually, no, let's look at a Nautilus. So it's really stickers that I made out for every single link of the bracelet, size of the watch, the lugs, and everything else. My whole issue with this is because I'm not familiar with the product and I didn't see the watch on with stickers. I've seen Rolexes with stickers, and you know what? As transparent as they are, oftentimes when a client came in and I had to take the stickers off them, sometimes I would forget a couple of stickers, especially between the bracelet and on the sides and stuff. But I will tell you this, that when it comes to the face of the watch, I wouldn't want any stickers on the face of the watch, because no matter how you slice it, no matter how clear those stickers are, they're going to get dull over time, number one. And it's still, the watch is still not as shiny, let's say if it's applicable, as one with stickers on. Number two, if you remember back in the day, Rolex had those stickers in the back of the watch. You ever find, like I oftentimes find old watches that have the original sticker on there. There's all kinds of dirt and gunk and stuff under there, right? And I would imagine that would happen with your watch, regardless of how good those stickers lay, because again, this is something that moves, right? This is something that moves. This is something that once you take on and take off, and you put it on a table somewhere or you lay it down, it's a movable thing. It's something that you're always consistently going to touch, right, and wipe down and things of that nature. Eventually what happens with like any sticker, the ends tend to lift up just a tiny bit, dust particles get in there, and your watch starts to look dirty. Again, I'm not trying to bust on the Sticks product. Never had any experience with it. First time I heard of it, actually. But long story short, I'm just not going to be a big fan of those stickers. And the reason for that is because I don't care how good they are, your watch will not look as good with stickers on as it will without. And honestly, I mean, here you get a sheet, right? Basically of these stickers that you have to painstakingly take off and put on every, like I'm looking at the Nautilus, put on every single link, put on the side of the watches. You have to wipe the watch down really, really nice so that the stickers don't come off. I have a big issue taking stickers off of a Rolex. But putting them back on, let alone, I've never done it. Like I actually just take stickers off Rolex, I've never put them back on. I would imagine that would be a pretty big pain in the ass. That would probably involve a pair of tweezers or something to do. Not a fan. But what I will tell you is, again, I've told you this guys numerous times, don't be afraid to beat up your watches. Don't be afraid to put scratches on your watches. They are a $200 polish away from being brand spanking new, right? And in a lifetime of a watch, let's say your son is 2 now, let's assume you're gonna hand him the watch over at 21, right? Or let's say 20, right? 18 years from him. In 18 years, you will polish your watch most likely 3 to 4 times, right? Unless you're somebody that's really, really anal, which again is not, I have buddies like that they see a tiny little mark, they want to get it taken out right away. Then you may polish your watch more to have those particular scratches taken out where possible. Oftentimes, it's not possible to take out a single gash from someone without polishing the entire part, right? But let's say you put a scratch on your bezel or one of the center links on a bracelet, you can polish just the bracelet. You don't have to polish the entire watch, right? And that's the fear of over polishing the watch. And also keep in mind, technology has changed greatly.
People are afraid of technology.
Technology!
The material used in these watches has changed greatly. When we look at vintage watches, to go back to the last question, from the 60s and the 70s, and oftentimes you find them over-polished, well, because the quality of metal wasn't as good. The technology behind polishing these watches weren't good. It was often done literally by hand, right, and not professionally, because again, back then, those watches weren't as expensive as they are today. They were tool watches, right, so people didn't really care to get them done properly. Nowadays, bring me a beat-up Rolex, a modern Rolex, like the Sky Dweller, I'll give it to my guy. When I bring it back to you, you're gonna be like, holy shit, this thing is brand spanking new.
It's amazing. You're a genius. He's just like new.
And you won't see signs of polishing. That's how good technology has gotten. So we're in a bit of a different world today. So again, my suggestion, as I've suggested in the past, would be just to simply go ahead and have your watches polished up, made brand new again, once you feel they've gotten to a point that are not pleasant to look at, and skip the stickers. Sorry. Here's a good question from Ryan. Roman, got 2 questions for you. On the retail side, What would you say is the best way to get into a lot of watch trade shows? I've looked online, but don't see a lot of advertising for upcoming shows. Obviously, with COVID, a lot has been canceled. But when it goes away, hopefully soon, where should I be looking for shows? I would love to get to some to shop around. Let me answer that first. A lot of the trade shows that I go to, they're not open to the public.
Please.
No. Hey, what's up, shorty? What's up, pretty girls?
What the was that?
I have had private customers or clients of mine walk into a show as my guests. And that's the only way really to get into these shows, because you have to have a member sign you in. Why? Because a lot of money on the floor, everybody knows everybody, it's a guild show. Every new member that becomes a member of that show is vouched by 2 other members, right? And that's how that show works. There are other shows that are open to the public, which is the US antique shows. And the best one is probably going to be in Miami, right? The one that happens right after New Year's. That's in the big convention hall down in Miami Beach. And that's where you're going to see a lot of antiques. You can see a lot of jewelers, and you're also going to see a lot of watch guys. Not as many as you would at IWJG. The best show that's open to the public is actually in Hong Kong. They have a guild show that happens every single month, into which they do allow the public in after a certain time. I don't remember what the cutoff is, but they do make an announcement, say, hey, we're going to let private clients in right now, so be careful because we don't really know who they are, right? So it's first dealer to dealer, and then they allow the private sector to come in. And then also the big show, like the big jewelry show. Again, not as many watch guys there. Majority of that is jewelry, because that thing is the size of 5 Javits centers, right? But still a fair amount of watch guys in there as well. And that's open to the public on a Saturday. The show is usually like a Thursday through a Monday. And that on a Saturday and a Sunday, they do open that up to the public as well. That's that question. My other question, how do you actually pay for the watches you're buying at the shows? I'm assuming you have a cash reserve at LB, but when you're attending a big show and expecting to pick up a lot of inventory, where does the money come from? Are you getting a loan from the bank, or is it all coming from LB? Okay, it's a little personal, but not really, I guess. Well, first of all, we have a thing called credit within the industry. I told you I'm in a wholesale business. So just as much as I extend credit to others, others extend credit to me. Depending on what you buy, with watches, it's usually not a lot of credit, maybe a week, sometimes 30 days, depending on what it is, or sometimes a revolving credit. Like if I buy $1 million worth of stuff consistently from somebody on a monthly basis, once a week I'm going to send them 250, 250, 250, and just kind of keep going, right? And then loan from the bank, of course, we work with a local bank. Very difficult in my business to get a loan, because all jewelers are dubbed as high risk, and we unfortunately are dubbed as jewelers, even though we're an internet company, right? Because of the nature of the stuff that we sell, because of past experiences. A lot of jewelry shops just close up shop, put everything in a suitcase, declare bankruptcy, and there goes that credit line, right? But we do work with a local bank that does give us a credit line. And of course, cash flow. We're a $100 million company plus a year. That $100 million comes in every single day on a daily basis. There's a dollar that comes in, right? So as that money comes in, it goes out. It goes in, it goes out. Managing it is a little bit more difficult than a traditional business, and the reason for that is because I don't have a set stock list, right? I don't sell, let's say, socks, hats, and T-shirts, right? Where I know it's a set price and it's a set cost that I order from the manufacturer, right? So sometimes I can have a week where I buy $1 worth of stuff, and the next day I buy $40 worth of stuff, right? There are days I can spend $1 million, there are days I can spend $0. So availability of merchandise is also not consistent. Sometimes the market is dry, like it is right now, and sometimes there's a lot of goods available that are out there. Also, years in business is another big deal. I told you guys before, my business is a funny business once you've been in it for a while. And you tell somebody who's not in this business, they say you're either crazy or you're lying. I can literally walk into every show, any major trade show out there tomorrow, and I can pick up $20 million worth of stuff without signing a single piece of paper and without writing a single check. That's the years in business that pay off, right? Because people know who you are, they've done business with you for numerous years, and they will literally hand you half of their showcase if you tell them it's mine, right? And won't even ask you, hey, can I get a check? Can I get this? Especially international shows, right? I don't utilize any money. Everything that I buy at an international show, I end up paying for later, right? Because if I'm in Hong Kong, writing a US check doesn't work. So I have to do that. I have to come home. Well, first of all, I have to leave the stuff there. I have to import it all to the United States. And then I usually do it upon receipt. Once everything comes in with box and papers and everything else, I will send out a wire. And some of these transactions can be way over $1 million, $2 or even $3 million. And again, without really signing a piece of paper, all based on a handshake and a word. I know it sounds crazy and sounds like I'm lying, but that's the reality of our business. Hope this gives you a little bit of insight, Ryan, and answers your question. Other than that, guys, this is it for me for today. I thank you for tuning in once again. Remember, email your questions to romansharf@luxurybazaar.com. It's your questions that make this show possible, and I love the questions that are pouring in. Again, some more of the same questions that I may have spoken in the past, but every question that may even be the same or something I have answered usually has some sort of twist to it or gives me a topic to talk about. So I appreciate all your emails coming in. Other than that, guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to my channel. And as always, I ask you to share this video with your friends. This is what helps my channel grow organically. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday.